Welcome to The Heartbeat, our regular check-in on the pulse of the community, where we highlight current stories and essential resources related to power-based violence. Today we are covering an ongoing and nuanced issue of domestic violence registries. Our last Heartbeat episode covered why these registries are such a big step in the right direction for abusers having accountability and keeping the community safer. In this episode, however, we're going to explore the reasons why these registries might actually cause more harm to the survivors that they aim to protect. So, to begin, one of the big issues with domestic violence registries is actually the privacy to the survivor. So, a lot of the time, a survivor and abuser might be married or related, and that would mean that that last name would be shared. Because of this, if the abuser gets put on the registry, the survivor could be outed in their community before they might feel ready to. This could not only halt the healing process, but also place the survivor at an increased risk.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you brought this up, Cameron, because I think that's such a good point, right? Not every single time are people married when it comes to domestic violence or intimate partner violence, but oftentimes people are and may have the same last name, and so
Yeah.
that's going to have some ramifications for sure.
Yeah, I mean, not even marriage. A lot of the time, the abuser and the survivor could be related by blood. It could be someone's dad or sister or uncle or aunt or anybody. And so that could even cause complications within the family if no one had known about that abuse prior.
Absolutely, and it could bring feelings of shame and guilt for the family
Absolutely.
members.
Another issue with domestic violence registries is that we also know that they'll never be fully comprehensive. So, at least with the Tennessee registry, you do need two domestic violence offenses to be put on the registry. But we know that only about 1 in 4 cases of domestic violence is ever even reported to law enforcement. And then once it's reported, it being convicted after that is even less. So, because of this, a registry could make a community feel like they are more protected from abuse than they could be. It could make one think that their partner isn't a risk if they don't find them on the registry, even though that person could very easily have one charge or charges that never even got brought to conviction. This could create a false sense of safety and do a lot of harm in a community.
Absolutely, because I know last episode we talked about that, if we're potentially dating a new partner, we can go and check the list. But the
Hmm.
reality is that there will be abusers miscounted for on the list that might not be on there, but may have a past that is problematic and that people may want to know about.
Absolutely. Another issue with this is a lot of the time when law enforcement does show up, dual arrests happen or they misidentify the abuser. So we do know that 1 to 7% of the time a dual arrest will occur, and in some jurisdictions this becomes even higher, reaching 16%, which is a lot. We also know that these numbers become even more drastic when it is a same-sex couple, reaching levels of like 30% of dual arrest. This could be or is a big issue because if there is only one abuser in the situation, the survivor getting a domestic violence charge and maybe being put on a registry could be detrimental to not only their emotional healing, but also career complications. Someone being put on the list, it's going to be really hard to find a job or maintain a job. And if they have children related in that situation, then paying for those expenses is going to be made very difficult.
Especially when we know that in 99% of intimate partner violence relationships, financial abuse occurs. So
Hmm.
oftentimes survivors are already at a financial disadvantage or are financially unstable as a result of their abuser. And so this can just further do more harm. And again, I wanted to bring up too just the intersectionality of intimate partner violence within the LGBTQIA plus community, right?
Hmm.
If law enforcement is called to a same-sex domestic violence call, we know that, like you shared, the statistics of both parties being arrested is much higher. And so this can, like you said, lead to many victims and survivors being put on registries, which absolutely is going to impact how they are healing, how their family or friends may see the situation. It could even go down to, like you said, those career complications and those financial issues.
Yeah. And to build off of that, we know that even if the abuser was correctly identified and put on the list, and maybe that did bring a sense of justice to the survivor in that moment, the person on that list, the abuser, is going to have a really hard time paying any child support that might be involved. And so while the survivor might have that sense of justice and definitely a sense of safety having their abuser put on this registry, it could cause a whole different problem of issues in a different way as well.
Absolutely. I think that's such a good point too, right? I think there's a lot of survivors out there that aren't getting paid the proper child support that they need in order to help their kids.
Absolutely. And so when we really look at these registries as a whole, they do bring some sort of accountability to abusers. The name on the list is definitely a sense of accountability and wrongdoing. But the public safety is it has some pros and some cons because, like we said, maybe it would be helpful when you're dating a new person to look on the registry and find their name. But it also might lead one to think that if they don't find the name, that they're 100% safe. And we also know that there's the privacy concerns involved with the last name. Maybe the survivor doesn't want the people to know about the abuse, and that would be a direct violation of that person's privacy.
I was gonna say it can be so difficult when we're working with, changing policies and laws. I genuinely believe that most public servants, most people creating these laws want to support and help survivors. But we know that even the most well-intentioned laws can have some negative consequences if we don't have survivor voices at the forefront when we are making these decisions on their behalf.
Absolutely. And then so it kind of just brings into question, who does this registry or these registries as a whole really aim to protect? Because if the survivor could have their privacy impeded on in any way, I don't really think that the survivor is being too protected by these registries in a lot of cases. And I also know that with the abuser being put on this registry, there's not like a mandated abuse intervention program that would be able to teach them healthy behaviors or be able to teach them why what they had done was wrong if they were not aware or had never heard that from someone else before. And so it could also be that the abuser gets put on the list, waits 5 years, and then reoffends again and not learn from why they were put on that list in the past.
Absolutely. I think as a whole, our society needs to be much more proactive in actually changing behaviors more so than reactive and just, you know, doing only consequences, right? There needs to be this process of relearning and reintegration that I think specifically in the US we don't do a great job at.
So that's all I have for domestic violence registries. Caroline, do you have any other last thoughts to add?
I think you did an amazing job. I'm so glad we were able to have this conversation again and talk about the not so great parts of this. Again, I believe that the intentions are always well, but these are the unintended consequences that we all need to be aware of when it comes to protecting survivors.
Yeah. Hartley House is hosting Take Back the Night on April 23rd on Hood College campus. It's going to be from
That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. The nice thing about this is we can just edit it all out.
Alrighty. Hartley House is hosting Take Back the Night on April 23rd from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on Hood College's campus in the Whitaker Campus Center building. The night will consist of community partners, survivors sharing their stories, art, and more. It's a night for survivors of power-based violence and their allies. Join us in creating a safe and empowering space to take back the night. The event link to register will be in the description of this video. Thank you for tuning in. To learn more, visit hartleyhouse.org. Sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social media, and subscribe to this podcast for more updates. Together we can create a community where everyone feels safe and valued. Until next time, take care and keep advocating for change.